because you could say, well, you're supposed to attend to the will of the people. It's like, well, yes, but attending to the will of the people, or let's say attending to the good of the people, is not exactly the same as attending to the easily manipulable whim of the people. And you know, one of the things you see in the modern political system, it's got worse and worse as far as I can tell, is that politicians govern by opinion poll.
Right.
Now, when I look at that as a psychologist, I think, you know, it's really, really difficult to measure what people think. And you might think that you've crafted up a few questions about an issue, and that what you get as an answer to those questions is a reliable and valid indicator of what people think. But you have no evidence for that at all. So if a psychologist wants to make a diagnostic questionnaire, the first thing you do is, imagine I wanted to know what you think about Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I would have to do is I would have to generate maybe 1,000 questions about the political situation in Israel. Then I would have to give them to 1,000 people to answer the questions. Mm-hmm. Then I would have to do a statistical analysis to see how the questions clumped, mm-hmm. because then I'd have some sense of what the underlying opinion structure of opinions about Israel is. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Then I would have to take the questions that sampled that best. Then I would have to ask you those questions, and then I might have to do it repeatedly, right?
Nobody does that.
No one does that. Yeah. No, and so what happens is it's garbage in and garbage out. And so what happens is the politicians pay the consultants to craft questions that deliver to the politicians exactly what they want to hear. And then they say, well, you know, that's what public opinion
people think. Right,
yeah.
exactly, mm-hmm. exactly. Well, this is one of the...
It's unbelievably useless.
The Bible looks very askance at people acting in direct opposition to a higher code of morality. I mean, people are just as capable of violating a higher code of morality as a king is. I mean, the idea of the tyranny of the majority has fallen out of fashion now because we worship at the altar of democracy. Democracy with a small d, obviously, the idea just being, if the people want it, then it must be good. But that obviously is not true.
Yeah, you just look at Twitter and you see how true that is.
I mean, you can look all over the world at elections that have resulted in the election of actual terrorist groups. And the reality is that there's a lot of acculturation that has to be created before democracy begins to actually channel the best values of the people rather than the worst mob rule of the people.